Hello and welcome to Contact Payroll online training. I'm Rupert. In this chapter, I will be looking at year-to-date adjustments. So let's look at a few year-to-date adjustment points. The purpose of year-to-date adjustments. Just briefly, the purpose of year-to-date adjustments is to make an adjustment of an employee's balances within any period of my payroll tax year. I could make a year-to-date adjustment in period 8, or for all intents and purposes, I could make a year-to-date adjustment in period 10. Normally, year-to-date adjustments won't occur in period 1 because period 1 is my first period of my tax year, and I could normally process in period 1 whatever is necessary to process. So after I've processed period 1 and I rolled over to period 2 or 3, it may become necessary to do a year-to-date adjustment. We'll get into a little bit more detail about that. So year-to-date balance adjustments are normally not required in the first period of a tax year, and that's a practicality. Year-to-date adjustments would normally occur from period 2 onwards. Either my payroll only started in period 2 or 3, or either I made a mistake in period 1 or 2 or 3, whatever following period, and I need to make a year-to-date adjustment in the following period. The next point, when a year-to-date adjustment is necessary later in the tax year, the payer will automatically try to process the year-to-date adjustment to the first period of the tax year. So what that means is that all the transactions, all the year-to-date transactions will be put into period 1 automatically by the payroll system. In other words, if I'm in period 10 and I do a year-to-date adjustment, the payroll will go and it will take those transactions, those year-to-date transactions, and put them back into period 1. That's just the default how the system operates. By logging as an admin user, the system can automatically use sub-transactions to process duplicate transactions in the first period of the tax year. So what do I actually mean by that? Is if I'm, say, for example, in period 6 and I do a year-to-date adjustment, the payer will take that adjustment and put it into period 1. But the problem is there may already be a similar transaction in period 1. So in other words, I may have in period 1 transaction number 200, which is monthly remuneration. Now I'm in period 6, month 6, for example, and I put a year-to-date adjustment for number 200 monthly remuneration. The payer will take that transaction number 200, whether it's a negative or positive amount, and it will try and process it back into period 1. But there's already a transaction in period 1. And that will create a duplicate. Now, by logging in as an admin user, you will enable the payroll to process a duplicate transaction as a sub-transaction, and I will just show you that now. The next point is duplicate transactions may occur in the first period of the tax year, which I've just explained, as a result of a year-to-date adjustment being processed later in the tax year. Sub-transactions are then used in this case. And then, of course, the last point, year-to-date transactions will always show on the transaction analysis reports and history as being processed in period 1. And I'm also going to show you that. So let's log into the payroll system. I'm going to log in as user, default user. I've got one employee loaded. And currently my employee is, as you can see here, in month 2, period 2. So what I'm going to do, and coincidentally for this specific company that I've processed here, I've already got a payment processed, as you can see, on the 31st of March with transactions in period 1. Just to show you what's going to happen. So I'm going into process transactions year-to-date take on. I double click on the employee record, and the payroll will now show you that the employee has worked a total of 4.999269 days on average. And that is because the employee didn't start on the 1st of March. The employee started somewhere in March, and that's the average days that was calculated for his periods that he worked. So you would just say yes on that screen. And now you'll see you've got the transactions that you've used previously to process for this employee. To do a year-to-date adjustment, you just double click on the transaction and enter an amount. So I've got an amount 1,000 there. You could enter it as minus 1,000, which means that it would actually deduct from his year-to-date balances. And let's add a positive amount to other remuneration of 500 Rand. Now when I click close, the payroll gives me a warning. It says transaction 220, monthly remuneration for this employee failed to update. So this message is very important, because if you're just going to click OK, the payroll will keep those year-to-date adjustments, but it won't process them. It says the reason: the system tried to save and update this transaction, but the same transaction already exists in period 1, and this is causing a duplicate. So how do I get past this? Well, if I log in with my admin user, I would actually be able to get past that stage. So let me show you. I'm logging in with admin, the daily password, and I go back into my year-to-date transactions, double click on my employee, and I click on close just to recalculate. It gives me the same warning, but as soon as I click OK, it says, admin user, do you wish to update the transaction by using a distribution code 9? And you could say yes, and it will ask me for the second transaction again, yes, and it will actually show you a green tick to show that it's been successful. So what that actually does, it goes and it processes the year-to-date transaction back into period 1, but although there are already transactions in period 1, the payroll then gives the year-to-date transaction a subcode of 9, which enables it to coexist into the in the same period. And I would like to show you on the reports how it actually looks. So if I go transaction analysis report, let's do it by transaction detailed for this employee, month 1 to 12, transaction 200. Or I think it's actually 220. Right. So if you look at this report, it will show you there was a transaction processed for 6/9/21, which was in March, and then I've done my adjustment afterwards, which is minus 1,000, and my balance in period 1 is 5/9/21. So you may ask, but why is it creating a duplicate transaction in period 1? Under normal circumstances, you would start your payroll in period 1 and you would run it through to 12. So year-to-date adjustments won't be necessary. But if I start my payroll, let's say for example in period 4 or 5, a year-to-date adjustment will be necessary for period 1 to 4. So in that case, period 1 to 4 will be completely empty. So the payroll will then take the adjustment that I've done for the first 4 periods of my tax year and process that back into period 1. Now, I realize that sometimes we've got processing from period 1 to, let's say, 6, and in period 7, we would like to make an adjustment, which means that there is already a transaction in period 1. And in that instance, the payroll will then need to use a distribution code because the same transaction, and that's also for security and checking purposes, the same transaction can't exist in period 1. And that is basically what year-to-date adjustment transactions entail. Thank you for watching, and please remember to email support@itcontact.co.za for any further queries that you may have regarding year-to-date transactions.